I never knew I was carrying another man's child until my fiancé discovered the truth. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sky outside was gray, heavy with clouds, like the weight in my chest. I remember the silence. It was deafening, wrapping around me, squeezing tighter with each passing second. My hands trembled. I could barely catch my breath. Jason, my fiancé, sat across from me, his eyes searching mine. Confusion mixed with hurt. How could I explain? I hadn't even known myself. It felt like my world was crumbling, piece by piece. A secret I didn't want to hold, yet it was there, looming like a shadow on the wall. That I had this feeling, something deep inside that I couldn't shake. The night before, my phone had buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words, "You're pregnant." My heart had stopped. I had stared at the screen, my breath hitching in my throat. I had to be wrong. I did the math in my head, dizzy with fear. I hadn't felt any different. Panic clawed at my insides. As I sat there, images of my life flashed before me. My family, so excited for our wedding. My mother's warm hugs, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about grandchildren. I wanted to scream. To cry. To tell them everything would be fine. But how could I? Jason shifted, his face pale. "Just tell me the truth, please," he whispered, desperation dripping from his voice. My heart shattered with each word. I wanted to say, "It's yours, I promise." But the truth hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating. I didn't know how to tell him about that fleeting encounter months ago. A mistake, a moment lost in time. A man I barely knew, a night spun from the threads of regret. A blur of lips and laughter that morphed into this terrifying reality. I don't know," I stammered, tears spilling down my cheeks. Everything felt surreal. The world was spinning. I could see his hands drop, a cold hollow of disbelief wrapped around us. The familiar warmth of our love felt so far away, like a fading echo in a vast empty room. The silence grew, swollen with tension. I could hear the distant shouts of children playing outside, laughter that felt like a mockery of my own despair. What had I done? In that moment, I felt utterly lost, trapped between love and betrayal, the walls closing in. My life was a tangled web, and I was caught in the middle, struggling to breathe, to understand. Could there be a way forward from this? Just then, Jason's phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it, and my breath froze. The screen lit up with a name that made my heart skip a beat. It was the last person I ever expected, Derek, the very man from that night. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The phone buzzed again, breaking the heavy silence like a gunshot. Jason's eyes flickered toward it, his expression shifting from confusion to suspicion and finally settling into something cold and sharp. I could see the gears turning in his mind, each rotation further entrenching the divide between us. "Who's Derek?" he asked, his voice a calm facade masking the storm raging beneath. It was a question filled with veiled accusation. I opened my mouth to respond, but no sound came out. The truth was a thorn in my throat, a word that would only add salt to the wounds already festering between us. "Is he the reason you didn't tell me about the pregnancy?" Jason pressed, his gaze unwavering, a mix of hurt and betrayal flooding his features. Each word was like a dagger, piercing through my fractured heart. My mind raced to find a way out, but the more I searched, the more I found myself ensnared. I had turned to the wrong person for solace. Now, I was losing the only one who mattered. "No. It's not like that, I finally said, desperate, tears spilling down my cheeks. But my voice felt like a feeble shield crumbling under his hurt gaze. Jason's knuckles whitened as he clenched his fists. Not like that. You spent a night with him and now you're carrying his child. Sounds pretty like that to me. Each word hit harder than the last, and the heat of his frustration wrapped around us, drawing the air from the room that I wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had widened so suddenly, but I felt paralyzed by the weight of my actions. I was staring into the abyss of our shattered reality, threatening to swallow us whole. Jason, please, I managed, needing him to see that I was just as lost as he was. The look in his eyes softened, if only for an instant, as he glanced out the window. Outside, I could see a blurry silhouette of children chasing one another across the lawn, their laughter tumbling through the air like a melody. There seemed to be an innocence in their joy that was both beautiful and cruel. They would never know the anguish racing through us. Jason rubbed his temples, exhaling sharply. I need time, he muttered, his shoulders sagging under the weight. And with that, he stood up, pacing like a caged animal. I was rooted to my seat, desperate for him to return, yet terrified of what that return might mean. Minutes felt like hours as the atmosphere stretched taut between us. What if, I took a shaky breath, an uncharacteristic spark of resolve igniting within me. What if I meet Derek? I can get some answers, find out what he knows. Maybe talking to him will help clear things up. Jason paused, his expression hardening again. You want to talk to him? Just like that? There was disbelief in his tone, but a flicker of curiosity too, some small part of him willing to cling to hope amid the chaos. Yes, I whimpered, the idea marinating in my mind. Maybe he can help me understand all of this. Maybe we can figure out what's next. My heart raced at the thought. Was I betraying Jason even more by approaching Derek? Was this a last-ditch effort to save my crumbling relationship? As Jason continued to pace, I slowly rose, feeling a spark of determination. I would confront my past head-on, even if it meant uncovering more truths I couldn't yet face. The tension in the air hung thick, each breath an agonizing reminder of the precarious tightrope I was walking. I turned toward him, a plea in my gaze. Please, can you at least give me that chance? He halted, his back to me. I watched his muscles tense and release like a tide, wrestling with a conflict that mirrored my own. And just as I felt a flicker of hope igniting in my chest, his phone buzzed again, shattering the moment. This time, it wasn't Derek's name flashing on the screen, but a message: I need to see you. Today. Important. My heart dropped as Jason read it, confusion morphing into an expression I couldn't bear to dissect. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the urgency was palpable. I couldn't shake the feeling that it held a truth that could change everything once. Again, who is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jason turned toward me slowly, eyes wide with disbelief, and for a moment, all I could see was his distress reflecting mine. Just as I felt myself spiraling back into despair, Jason's jaw set firm, a secret determination igniting beneath the hurt that I don't know. But maybe it's time I find out. With those words thickening the air, I braced myself. A new chapter was unfolding, and with it came a reminder of the knots constricting my heart, leaving me teetering on the precipice of doubt, uncertainty, and an overwhelming need to uncover the truth. Could this impending confrontation with an unknown sender turn another corner in the emotional labyrinth we were lost in, or would it plunge us deeper into the abyss? The hum of the fluorescent lights above felt like a buzzing swarm as I sat in the kitchen, the weight of Jason's words sinking into my bones. The sunlight filtering through the window cast long shadows over the table, mimicking the pallor overshadowing my heart. Each pulse of doubt ricocheted in my mind, echoing the tension left in Jason's wake. My thoughts strayed back to the message that had jolted us both into an uncertain reality. Who was reaching out to Jason, and why now? The questions replayed in my head in a relentless loop, each iteration adding a strand of anxiety to the already tangled mess of my emotions. The phone buzzed again, a lightning strike cutting through the heavy air, but it was mine this time. I swallowed hard, the familiar numbness creeping in, as I beheld Derek's name flickering on the screen. My hand trembled while hovering over the answer button, an inner turmoil brewing that threatened to swallow me whole. But before I could make the choice to respond, a small voice broke through my thoughts. "Mommy?" I turned to find Mia, my 7-year-old daughter, standing in the doorway, clutching her stuffed bunny. Her wide eyes reflected innocence, completely untouched by the chaos that had enveloped my life. In that moment, the world blurred, and it was just her and me. "Hey, sweet pea," I managed, my voice catching in my throat. At that moment, everything else faded away, replaced by the unyielding love I had for her. She stepped closer, curling her fingers around mine, searching my face for answers I struggled to provide. "Is everything okay?" she asked, concern etched in her delicate features that mirrored mine. I knelt down to meet her gaze, wrapping my arms around her. "Everything's just a little messy right now, but we'll figure it out. I promise." Her tiny arms clung to me tightly, and for a fragile moment, my aching heart felt soothed, reminding me of the love we were anchored in. Our bond was an unbreakable string, pulling me back to solid ground amidst this turbulent storm. "Can we make cookies?" she asked, her face lighting up. "You said we could do that today." The simple request rekindled a spark of joy in my chest. "Yes. Let's make the biggest batch we can." As we moved to the kitchen, I buried my fears beneath flour and sugar, following Mia's enthusiasm with unyielding devotion. The laughter we shared resonated like music, slicing through the dense fog of my worries. I watched as her cheeks dimpled with joy while rolling dough, and for a fleeting moment, I could almost pretend everything was normal, yet, even as we baked, the weight of my impending decisions loomed sullen in the background. The thought of Derek prickled at the edges of my mind, uninvited yet persistent. A small part of me longed for clarity, for answers that might untangle this mess. But at what cost? Can we put chocolate chips in every cookie? Mia chirped, her eyes wide with excitement, an innocent reminder of simpler times when our biggest worries revolved around whether cookies should be chewy or crispy. "Of course. That sounds delicious," I responded, pushing the growing anxiety to the recesses of my mind as we adorned the dough with chocolate chips, each one a small celebration in the midst of confusion. Just as we began to slide the tray into the oven, my phone buzzed again. My pulse quickened as I looked down, and my heart fell. It was not Derek, it was Jason. "I'm going to meet with that person," the message read. "I need to know the truth." A cold shiver washed over me, tempered only by the warmth of my daughter beside me. "What's wrong, Mommy?" Mia glanced up, sensing my shift in energy like a quiver in the ground before an earthquake. "Nothing's wrong, just a message from Dad," I lied, forcing a smile. Her innocence was a fragile shield, and I didn't want to dismantle it with my struggles. I squeezed her hand, my heart torn between trying to shield her from the growing tempest while feeling a nagging urge to confront my own. "How about we decorate our cookies?" But as we pulled out the frosting and sprinkles, my mind drifted back to Jason's urgent need. To seek the truth that could unravel everything we had built together. What if it led him down a dark path, one of betrayal and despair? My fingers trembled as I pressed a chocolate chip onto a cookie, each movement weighed down by the knowledge of the impending confrontation. Before I could dwell too deeply, the oven timer beeped, breaking through the internal storm. "I'll get it!" Mia exclaimed, running toward the heat of the oven with childlike excitement, and I followed closely behind, suddenly aware of how fragile these moments were. When we pulled the tray out, the smell enveloped the kitchen, and I marveled at the gooey cookies glistening with promise. But just as Mia bounced with joy, a chill moved through the air. The phone rang again, startling both of us. This time, an unknown number. Instinctively, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What does this person want? I hesitated, glancing at Mia before answering, my heart pounding a relentless beat of uncertainty. "Hello." I managed, my voice steadied by the hope that lingered within me. "Is this Clara?" The answering voice was deep, unfamiliar but not unfriendly, sending chills up my spine. "You need to listen to me. We need to talk about Jason. It's urgent." My stomach dropped as the weight of that revelation sent me hurtling into chaos. I turned back, eyes wide towards Mia, who was blissfully unaware of the tempest that raged in my heart. My world pivoted again, and panic settled in as reality warped around me. "Who is this?" I choked out, dread pooling at the base of my throat. "Just someone who cares about Jason." "Trust me," the voice responded, every word laced with a gravity I could not ignore. And just like that, I stood teetering on the edge of an abyss once more, caught in a whirlwind of choices and secrets, with my daughter beside me, the sweet scent of cookies a stark contrast to the impending storm. This felt like a pause before the impending storm would break, and little by little, I could feel the ground crumbling beneath me. The warmth of the cookies faded, shadows creeping around our little kitchen as the conversation with the unknown caller lingered in my mind. I stood frozen, the phone pressed to my ear as if it might shatter reality as I knew it. The world felt unbearably fragile, an intricate web threatening to unravel with a single pull. "Clara, are you there?" The voice prompted, concern lacing the urgency. The sound of Mia humming a tune at the kitchen table anchored me back for a second, reminding me of what truly mattered. Her laughter, her innocence, a direct line to my heart. I forced myself to breathe, to think beyond the fear threatening to paralyze me. "What do you know?" I asked, cryptic but demanding. "More than you could imagine. Please, let's meet somewhere private." "You're in danger," he urged, his tone earnest and painfully urgent. My instincts wavered, caught in a web of half-truths and assumptions, the truth of Jason hanging heavily in the air. "What do you mean I'm in danger? How do you know anything about me?" "Because I'm trying to protect Jason, and in turn, you and your daughter," he said. "I can explain, but you need to trust me." Trust is a fragile thing, built slowly over time, then swiftly shattered by doubt. "I can't just. Mia deserves to be safe. You need to protect her," he implored, and for the first time in this tangled mess, the weight of my daughter's future hit me like a tsunami. The reality of our lives, the delicate balance I was trying to maintain, felt like teetering on the edge of a crumbling cliff. I hesitated, the taste of desperation salty on my tongue. "Where?" I managed, even as dread knotted my stomach. "Meet me at the old coffee shop on Maple Street in an hour," he instructed, then ended the call, leaving me in a void of uncertainty. I hurriedly dropped the phone onto the counter, breathless. "Mommy, is everything okay?" Mia's sweet voice pulled me from the chaos, her little brow furrowed in concern. The innocence in her deep brown eyes threatened to break me open, and I hated the idea of dragging her into this. "Everything's fine, sweet pea," I lied, galvanizing my resolve to push through this storm. "We just need to finish our cookies." But even as I spoke, the weight of the upcoming confrontation loomed heavy, creating a palpable chasm of anxiety within me. Once the cookies were decorated and perched proudly on the table, I forced a smile that felt more like a mask than an expression of joy. I gathered Mia in my arms, savoring the eternal warmth of her tight embrace, hoping it could shield me from the uncertainty I faced. "Can we eat them now?" she chirped, her eyes sparkling with the innocence of a child who found joy in the simplest things. "Of course. Let's have a cookie party," I declared, my voice carrying a twinge of desperation as I fought off the gnawing fear inside. Each bite of the warm cookie crumbled beneath my teeth, sending waves of sweet chocolate through my senses. But with every morsel, my heart sank deeper, tainted by the knowledge of the invitation that lay before me. Time marched on mercilessly. A lingering glance at the clock turned the joy of our cookie party into a bitter reminder of the confrontation looming ahead. I fought to stay present, caught in a tug-of-war between wanting to shield my daughter from this upheaval and feeling the urgency of unraveling the truths surrounding Jason. After what felt like an eternity, I glanced down at Mia, who was lost in her own world, giggling as she arranged a design with sprinkles. Suddenly, I wanted nothing more than to wrap her in bubble wrap and escape together, to flee from the shadows encroaching on our lives. "Mia, sweetie," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "How about we make a card for Dad, just for fun?" "Okay." She beamed, clapping her hands in delight, momentarily distracting me from the impending storm. We found colored paper and markers, and as she drew a picture of our family, I watched with a heart swelling with love, such pure, unwavering love from a child. But as she crafted her masterpiece, an icy pit formed in my stomach. What would Jason think if he knew what was coming? The thought of his disappointment, his pain, made my heart ache deeply. With one last look at the clock, I felt time pulling at its loose threads, and I steeled myself, preparing to leave. Mia, I need to run an errand, but I'll be back soon, okay? You can finish the card while I'm gone. Can I have more cookies? She asked, her big eyes pleading. Absolutely, and save one for me. I promised, forcing a buoyant tone that felt foreign. Before I left, I pressed a kiss to her forehead, inhaling the soft scent of her hair, desperate to etch this moment into my mind forever. I love you, Mia, that I love you too, Mommy. She called, giggling as she turned back to her drawings. As I stepped outside, the air felt heavy, and the silence was like a blanket of anxiety draping around my shoulders. The old coffee shop loomed ahead, its familiar facade feeling more ominous than inviting. Each step reminded me of the weight inching toward me, and the nagging sense of urgency in the man's voice echoed in my mind. I pushed the door open, the bell jingling above, and the aroma of coffee hit me like a wave, familiar yet unsettling. My heart hammered against my ribs, the ambience around me fading into a blur. And there he sat, a man I had never met but whose words echoed in my mind, anchoring a truth I couldn't fathom. His presence was both a comfort and a threat, and I felt the fullness of the moment hanging in the air, a fragile moment ripe with uncertainty. Clara, he greeted softly, his voice carrying an urgency that sliced through the mundane bustle of the cafe. We need to talk. It's about Jason and your daughter. Before I could respond, he leaned closer, his expression serious and grave, and uttered words that sent a shiver coursing through me. You're not just carrying his child. There's more than you know. My world tilted precariously, each heartbeat resonating with the unnerving truth expanding infinitely before me. What could possibly complicate this situation further? I felt dizzy, a whirlwind of emotions flaring inside me as a new darkness loomed ever closer, ready to envelop everything in its wake. The coffee shop swirled around me, the clatter of cups and muted conversations fading into a muffled buzz as I tried to process his words. Every moment stretched out, elongated by the implications hanging in the air like heavy fog. What do you mean, more than I know? I stammered, my heart racing faster than it had in years. The man leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Jason isn't who you think he is. He's in deeper than you can imagine, and it puts you and your daughter at risk. His eyes darted around the cafe, scanning for any prying ears or watchful eyes before locking back onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. Why are you telling me this now? My voice trembled, a mix of fear and betrayal knotted in my throat. Who are you? Just someone who cares about your safety, he replied, frustration flickering across his features. Jason is involved in something. He hesitated, searching for the right words. Something dangerous. I thought you should know before it's too late. A wave of nausea crashed over me as I recalled the late-night phone calls, the whispered words he would try to brush off. He never mentioned anything, I protested weakly, grasping at the threads of denial while racing to reconcile the man I loved with this potential nightmare. Of course he wouldn't, the man said, frustration spilling over. He's trying to protect you, but he's also drowning in something he can't control. You need to understand that the challenge ahead is bigger than you both. That I felt the ground shift beneath me, tilting ever so slightly, as if the very foundation of my reality could be upended at any moment. What do you want from me? I managed to say, my voice hollow. To warn you, he replied, a flicker of empathy softening his tone. To help you get away safely. He's been followed, and soon he might come looking for you. You must prepare. I echoed, panic gripping me now. 1,000 thoughts whirled through my mind. Mia, my life, the dreams we were building. What am I supposed to do? We need to set up a plan. You can't be at home when he comes. His gaze softened slightly, as if he felt the weight of my fears. I know this is a lot to take in, but you have to trust me. Trust. It felt like a foreign concept in that moment, a threadbare notion that had been frayed in my mind. Could I trust this man who appeared out of nowhere, armed with truths I couldn't yet understand? Why should I trust you? I shot back, still clinging to some semblance of control, because I was once in Jason's world. I've seen what it can do, and I don't want you to suffer the same fate. The sincerity in his voice was unsettling, stirring a tumult of emotions inside me: fear, anger, but perhaps even a flicker of hope. You have a chance to protect Mia. Please, take it seriously. That I swallowed hard, grappling with the realization of how shallow my understanding of Jason truly was. As chaos stirred within me, the thought of Mia crept back. In a fragile heart left exposed to the world's cruelties, the sharp edges of reality now threatening our sanctuary. What do you suggest I do? We can set a meeting time. I can guide you to a safe place where you can stay, shielded from anyone looking for you and Jason. But the moment you leave here, you must be ready for anything. It won't be easy, but your safety, and MIA's, is paramount. The thought of uprooting our lives in an instant conjured up a visceral reaction, a mix of fear and a raw, prickling strain of desperation. I can't just leave, I protested. Mia, she deserves stability, then give her a chance to have it, he urged, his eyes pleading. This isn't only about you, Clara. It's about keeping the two of you alive. I and the chorus of clinking cups and bustling patrons, I felt the walls closing in. My emotional armor splintered as the weight of the future pressed down on me, heavy and unrelenting. Okay, I breathed out shakily. Listen, relief washed over his face, a flicker of hope rekindling something deep within me. Let's meet tomorrow at noon. I'll explain everything you need to know. Just as I nodded, a loud crash reverberated through the cafe, disrupting our moment of fragile understanding. A group of men burst into the shop, their voices raised, a tension crackling in the air that sent a jolt of fear through me. I instinctively pressed back against the wall, my heart racing, me instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. Clara, the man said urgently, his posture shifting as he cast a cautious glance toward the entrance. We need to go. Now, before I could react, he grabbed my wrist, the urgency in his grip pulling me towards the back exit. The chaos grew louder as shouts echoed in the small coffee shop, and I felt a chill creep down my spine. My mind raced. What was happening? What had I gotten myself into? Panic surged as I glanced back, my thoughts flashing to Mia, left alone with no idea of the storm brewing around us. Wait! I yelled, desperately yanking my wrist free. I can't leave her. The man's eyes darkened, a flicker of desperation gleaming in his gaze. If you don't move now, you may lose more than just time, Clara. We need to protect your daughter. She may not be safe for long. The room seemed to spin, uncertainty spiraling and wrapping around me like a vice. I stood on the precipice of a choice that could alter everything, the life I had built or the safety of my child. The urgency of the moment gripped me tight, pulling at my resolve as the chaos closed in, and just as I made my decision to follow him, I glimpsed a shadow moving through the cafe, a figure I recognized. Jason, his face twisted with an expression I had never seen before, entered the shop searching, scanning the crowd desperately. Terror flooded my veins as visions of everything I tried to protect collided violently with the reality of the moment. In that split second, the path diverged before me, pregnant with all the possibilities of love and danger. I stood frozen, breath caught in my throat, torn between two worlds that threatened to collide violently. And in that instant, I realized I wasn't just facing a nightmare, I was standing at the brink of a chasm, unsure of which ledge I would choose next. Both choices bore consequences that echoed dangerously into the future, heralding a storm that could unravel everything. Panic clawed at me as I stood paralyzed in the coffee shop, the cozy ambience shattered like glass in a tempest. Jason's eyes were wild, dancing frantically through the crowd, searching, longing for something he couldn't articulate. I barely registered the chaos around me: clattering of cups, the hushed murmurs of patrons who sensed something was amiss. In that turmoil, my heart thudded with a desperate urgency, caught in a web spun by truths and lies. Clara. Please. The man beside me urged, his grip on my arm tightening. Each passing second felt like a countdown, a plea hanging in the charged atmosphere. I could hear Jason's voice rising above it all, calling my name, a lifeline reaching through the fog of uncertainty. Wait. I shouted, ignoring the man's guiding force. Jason. My heart ached to close the distance, to reclaim the connection I felt slipping through my fingers like sand. But as I stumbled closer, a riptide of fear pooled within me, warning of an impending collision. Stay back. The stranger hissed, pulling me out of reach. He doesn't know the mess he's in. That I turned back to face Jason, whose expression blended concern and confusion, his jaw clenched, eyes darkened by unspoken fears. What's going on? He demanded, his voice steady but tinged with something deeper, an inkling of discovery that hinted at a truth far more unsettling than either of us could foresee. Clara. He shouted again, desperation naked in his tone, igniting a fire in my core. The protective instinct for my daughter surged to the forefront. What if he was in danger, too? What if he was somehow mixed up in whatever shadowy world this man had alluded to? I can explain. I yelled back, grasping for clarity amidst the chaos. My mind raced, spinning with possibilities of how this would go, scanning the room for Mia's safety. I felt his eyes on me, searching, seeking to understand, but I couldn't tilt the scales toward one choice without fearing to shatter another. Clara, listen, the stranger sidestepped, his voice urgent yet low. He's not safe. You need to come with me now. Jason caught my eye, and in that moment, time thickened like honey. His features softened, and I realized despite everything swirling around us how much he loved me. How much he wanted to protect not just me, but Mia too. What's happening? He rasped, his eyes pleading for an answer amid the brewing storm. No time. Growled the stranger. If I'm right, your lives depend on this. And just then, a new wave of chaos erupted as the group of men who had stormed in earlier began shouting at the barista, threatening with abrasive demands. I could feel the electric tension shift, the danger tangibly escalating. Clara. Jason reached for me, and something snapped inside me. Come back. He urged, the strength in his voice an anchor amidst the rising tide. The world felt heavy, the weight of not just one choice, but many, each leading to paths shrouded in uncertainty. As I turned back to the man, fear flickered in the corner of my mind like a warning light. Every fiber of my being was on alert, danger mixed with longing, truth shadowed by deceit. That I won't leave her. I shouted over the clamor, determined. If we're in danger, we need to face it together. Clara, please listen to me, he pleaded, but I drowned out his words. My heart surged with a sense of resolve that drowned the chaos around me. Jason needed me. I would not abandon him like this, not when his voice was calling, lacing through the panic in the air. Mia. I called out, desperation stretching my voice thin, hoping somehow she had sensed what lurked around the corner of our lives. I could almost see her tiny face, her laughter, her innocencia, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. Then, as if summoned by my call, the cafe door burst open again, the metallic clang of it striking my heart with a jolt. My breath halted in my throat as I felt the world shift again. This time, it was the figure of a woman I hardly recognized, her hair disheveled and face a mask of urgency. Clara. She screamed, her eyes wide as she locked onto mine. Come with me, now. It was a face I hadn't seen in years. Allison, an old friend with bitter connections and a past paved with shadows. In that instant, everything shifted. The depth of a connection never severed ran a current through the air, yet carried with it the bitter taste of old betrayals. You too. I whispered hoarsely, as confusion mingled with the heartbeat of the moment. She nodded, urgency raw in her voice. We don't have time to explain. They're coming. We need to leave, now. I glanced between Jason and the stranger, their faces two sides of a coin, love tangled with mistrust, danger lurking beneath the surface. My heart shattered with the burden of my choices weighing heavily, each second taunting me with a new revelation, a fresh wound of betrayal. With one final look at Jason, his eyes filled with terror, confusion, and a love that still held me anchored, I felt the ground pull towards me like a magnetic field. It was me against the tide, and in this crucial moment, I had to decide which direction my heart would lead. Mimi past, the life I had built, or the uncertain future that loomed before us, and then I stepped forward, drawn by something so fundamentally human, explaining everything and nothing all at once. I had to know what awaited if I followed this current. The shadows loomed larger, darkened by uncertainty, both the fear of what I was leaving behind and the promise of what lay ahead tingled like electricity down my spine. "Mia," I whispered one last time, uncertainty tinged with desperation. The choice was made. Yet as I stepped into the unknown, I felt the haunting knowledge of truths still buried and dangers yet to arise, spiraling into a darkness I could no longer ignore. In the silence that followed, the silence of a world shifting, my heart raced not just with fear but with the undeniable weight of change suspended between choices I could never take back. And the ground felt all too ready to crumble beneath me, shattering the fragile connection still holding me above the depths. The chill of uncertainty wrapped tightly around me as I stepped towards Allison, desperation surging in my chest. Jason's shout faded into a murmur behind me, the world blurring as I was pulled into the swirl of possibilities, memories, and the looming shadows of my past. I could feel the weight of each moment, each choice, echoing through my veins. "Clara, don't." Jason's voice cracked, slicing through the haze of decision with such force that I faltered, the looming threat of regret heavy in the air. Part of me longed to turn back, to seek solace in his embrace, but an equally potent part knew that the danger was not a mere whisper in the wind, it was real and pressing, pushing at the edges of our lives. With one last glance over my shoulder, I felt Jason's turmoil radiating from his eyes, hurt, confusion, and a wrenching longing that twisted deep within me. Then I faced Allison, the storm of memories crashing into me, laughter shared over coffee, tears spilled over lost loves, friendship born from an understanding of each other's hurts. Yet within that bond lay a layer of betrayal, a history I could no longer ignore. "They're close," Allison murmured, her urgency snapping me back to the present. I glanced around, the familiar clatter of the cafe replaced by an uneasy stillness that hinted at danger lurking nearby. My senses heightened, I felt as though the air itself had thickened with unseen threats. Stepping out into the bustle of the street, I felt a moment of loss for the safety I was leaving behind, but the instinct to protect Mia, even from afar, surged up. My hands trembled slightly as I felt the cool metal of my phone slipping through my fingers, the last connection to her world. "Do you know where she is?" I asked, urgency quickly edging out uncertainty. Allison's eyes softened with concern, a resolve hardening behind them. "I do. But we can't stay here. They're tracking us." She pushed me forward, her hand steadying my back, guiding me through the throng of oblivious pedestrians. The streets felt both foreign and hauntingly familiar, each face a potential ally or a hidden enemy. My heart pounded in my chest, a beat echoing with Jason's name and the threat to our lives. I couldn't shake the weight of his stare, his raw emotion blazing behind me like a sun I was turning my back on. Could I really trust Allison when the past they shared was steeped in complexities I had yet to untangle? "Is it true?" I said, each word heavy with the burden of doubt. "Did you betray me because of him?" Allison flinched but didn't falter as she navigated the crowded street. "We were desperate, Clara. You don't understand the pressure we were under. I thought protecting you meant keeping you away from him, keeping Mia safe from the family intrigue that threatened us all." "Protecting me? Or protecting yourself?" I countered, the bitterness rising within me like bile. Each past wound was opening again, raw and unhealed, as uncertainty gnawed at me. The connection I had with Allison felt irrevocably tainted, but at the same time, I wondered if desperation would unite us against the looming threat. Before she could respond, a sharp sound cut through the air, shouts erupting from a distance, harsh and incendiary. My heart leaped into my throat as Allison's grip tightened. "Run!" she urged, an urgency in her voice that sent us darting into a narrow alleyway. Adrenaline flooded my body, but within the tension, a flicker of hope sparked. Maybe in following Allison, I could find my daughter. I wove through the tight spaces, the walls pressing in as we raced deeper into the shadows of the unknown. The echoes of the city faded into a dull roar, drowning out my thoughts. With every step, I couldn't help but question if I had made the right choice, if Jason was safe, or if I had just condemned us all. "Here," Allison breathed, pushing open a heavy door that creaked ominously. Dim light filtered through narrow windows, illuminating stacks of boxes and cluttered debris. "This is my aunt's old studio, we can hide here for now." As we settled into the dimness, panting from the escape, I remembered a time when I'd once sought refuge in places just like this. But as the memories washed over me, so did the ghosts of my past, each shadow whispering fragile secrets that tickled at the edges of my consciousness. Do you still have contact with him? I hesitated, wrestling with the words. I needed answers. The truth would unravel the web that threatened to ensnare us once more. Her expression shifted, a mix of grief and resolve swirling across her features. "I do. We're tied together by blood and secrets, Clara. And there are things you don't know, things that could change everything. What could be worse than this?" I snapped, frustration boiling over. In that moment, her gaze softened, vulnerability spilling into the chaos. "You don't understand what you're a part of. You have a right to know," she whispered, a hint of fear threading through her voice. "But it's more dangerous than you realize." Before I could lash out with more questions, the door slammed open, and a figure loomed in the entrance, silhouetted against the dim light. Instinctively, I stepped back, heart hammering in my chest. The world tilted under the weight of recognition, and my breath caught in disbelief. There, framed in the doorway, stood a familiar face. I never expected to see one that sent shockwaves of memories and tumult flooding into my mind. "Mia," I rasped as the figure pulled back the hood of their jacket, revealing a person caught in the crossfire of my life, the remnants of secrets thickening the air around us. With each step forward, I felt the ground beneath me tremble, the foundations of my carefully constructed world beginning to crack, and in that moment, with everything hanging in the balance, I realized the truth I sought was not just hidden in the past. It was standing right before me, poised to unravel what was left of the fragile web I had woven around my family's heart. Hope twisted in my chest, an intricate knot that threatened to strangle me as I stared into the eyes of my daughter, for that was undoubtedly Mia standing before me. The space distorted around us, the once suffocating silence filled with a cacophony of memories, laughter echoing through park swings, and gentle whispers exchanged under starlit skies. But the frantic pulse of the present disrupted those serene images, anchoring me back to the alarming reality we found ourselves tangled in. "Mia," I exclaimed, urgency lacing my voice, "what are you doing here?" Her expression flickered between relief and unease. "Mom," she breathed, and in that singular word, the weight of 1,000 missed moments crashed over me. My throat tightened, emotions swirling wildly as I fought against the tides of panic threatening to pull me under. Had she come willingly into this danger, or was she caught up in forces beyond her control? Before she could answer, the harsh reality of our situation pressed in from all sides. "You shouldn't be here," I exclaimed, fear prickling at my skin. How was she here? Had they truly managed to find her? I couldn't bear the thought of her being swept up in the chaos that threatened to consume me. "Mom, listen," she started, but I couldn't let her speak. The fear of exposing her to any more danger darted like a wildfire inside me. "Mia, you need to go," I urged, glancing wildly towards the door as if it could close off our past missteps. "You don't understand what's happening. They're looking for us, Mia." Allison interjected, her voice stern and commanding, cutting through my panicked thoughts. "This isn't safe, you have to trust us." The storm of emotions bubbling in my chest erupted, blending hurt and anger into a tapestry of confusion. I turned to Allison, eyes blazing with all the resentment I had barely kept at bay. "Trust? You want her to trust you? You, who helped set this nightmare into motion? She didn't come here on her own." Allison countered fiercely. "She's here because she's been following the clues, the same way we are. They're closing in, and she can help us figure out what they want." A moment of silence loomed heavy in the air, pregnant with unspoken fear and tangled loyalties. MIA's gaze shifted from me to Allison and back again, her youthful face caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty, and I felt the ground beneath us shift once more. We stood on the precipice of a fracture that could redefine everything. "Mia," I said finally, forcing myself to calm the tempest inside, "what do you know?" Her hesitation tortured me, the silence echoing in the cramped space like a heartbeat. "I saw something, Mom. Some files. A name. It was Jason's, she whispered, the tremor of doubt and fear coloring her words. Mia, you shouldn't, I began, panic mixing with dread as I imagined her stumbling upon the tangled web of secrets that had ensnared us all. It's okay, Mom, she started, but I interrupted her, the gravity of my own realization creeping in. Do you know who he really is? I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of everything we had just now unearthed. Mia opened her mouth, hesitating as her young eyes flickered with the burden of knowledge. I think I overheard something. Something about the family just then. The door rattled violently, snapped aside with a force that sent our hearts racing. My instincts screamed for us to flee as I caught a glimpse of shadowy figures converging upon the studio. We have to go. Now. I yelled, adrenaline surging through my body like wildfire. Mia, run. I screamed, grabbing her arm to pull her toward the back exit, but her feet were rooted in place, and I could see the resolve pooling in her eyes. Mom, I can help. I have the documents, she insisted, voice steady despite the fear coursing through the room, the air charged with impending danger. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, a fragile thread that could fray at any moment. The desperate urge to protect surged within my mother's instinct combined with the urge to uncover the truth that seemed to promise answers, but at what cost? No. I barked back, grappling with the churning emotions and the gnawing regret of keeping her from safety. This isn't a game. We can't afford more mistakes. A moment of indecision passed between us, fear and courage battling inside me, threatening to tear me apart. But as the shadows grew more distinct with each passing second, I made a choice, a bond stronger than my fear, forged by the love that held us together like a tether amidst chaos. Okay, I finally said, my voice trembling but resolute. But if we do this, we do it together. No more secrets. Just as that fragile alliance took root, a loud crash echoed behind us, sending shards of hope scattering like glass as panic swallowed any semblance of safety. And then, as we turned towards the source of the noise, the silhouette of a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. A man I had never imagined would find us here, drawn to the chaos by threads of betrayal and conflict. Jason stood in the doorway, his eyes meeting mine, a whirlwind of emotions reflected back at me. Clara, he breathed, but before he could step in, the shadows leapt forward, and before I could scream a warning, everything plunged into darkness, all clarity shattered, leaving us teetering on the edge of a truth that promised to bury us all. The darkness enveloped us, a suffocating cloak that extinguished hope and set my heart racing with terror. I could barely make out the outlines of bodies shifting in the shadows, their intentions as unreadable as the depths of the void surrounding us. Clara. Jason's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with anxiety, but I couldn't find the words to respond. My mind raced, caught in a tangled web spun from his appearance, so full of unanswered questions. How had he found us? What did he know? And most pressing of all, could I trust him? Mia, hold on to me. I shouted, grasping for my daughter's hand, aware that in the pitch-black uncertainty, every second counted. Mom, Mia hesitated, glancing nervously towards the entrance where the ominous sounds of footsteps grew louder. Her bravery was a fragile flame in the tempest, flickering against the wind of fear. Now, Mia. I urged, pulling her closer as we instinctively huddled together, forming a fragile barrier against the chaos eager to invade our sanctuary. Then, out of the dense shadows, a figure rushed forward, catching me off guard. Before I could react, Jason's strong arms enveloped us, drawing us back into the dimly lit room. This way. He commanded, his authoritative presence revealing a spark of determination. Even amidst the terror that I felt a swell of gratitude but struggled to shake the disbelief I harbored towards him. Jason had once been a part of the life I thought I knew, a comforting constant. But the revelation about Mia, how could I reconcile that with the man I had loved? The man who had seemingly turned his back on us. As we stumbled deeper into the room, I caught a glimpse of Allison, her eyes darting towards the entrance as she shifted uneasily. We need to barricade the door. She hissed, grim resolve hardening her features. In unison, we pushed furniture against the entrance, my heart pounding louder than the noise of the approaching figures. Jason's focused demeanor offered a strange sense of calm amidst our spiraling panic. "This isn't just about hiding," he said firmly, his tone cutting through the emotional fog. "We need to understand what's coming for us." A wave of indignation washed over me. "How can we trust you after everything?" I blurted out, my voice shaking with the weight of all my fears. The truth of what had happened between us blurred as I stared into his steady gaze, searching for the familiar spark I once saw in his eyes. "That I know you don't trust me," Jason replied, his voice steady but laced with something deep, something vulnerable. "But I found something. Something big. It connects you, me, and Mia." Mia's grip on my hand tightened at his words, the hint of a heavy revelation pulling her gaze upward, her eyes searching Jason's face. "What do you mean?" she asked, her childish innocence stark against the haunting implications of his proclamation. "There are connections to a framework bigger than our misunderstandings," he replied, urgency now threading through his speech. "They want something from us, something we may not yet fully understand." Allison shifted, her eyes flicking anxiously to the door barricade. "It won't hold them for long. We need to get out of here," she urged, panic creeping back into her voice. "What if they already know something?" I asked, the chill of dread creeping into my veins. "What if it's connected to the files Mia saw?" "Mia never should have been here," Jason interjected sharply, the shadow of regret crossing his features. "She's in danger because of my past. That's exactly why I'm here. I need to know." Mia's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering, brimming with an unexpected strength that I had almost forgotten. "I can handle this, Mom. In that moment, I saw glimpses of the woman she might become, fierce, bold, unyielding, but it filled me with both pride and fear." "You're not handling it alone," I insisted, taking a step closer to her. "I won't let you." Just as those words sank in, the pounding stopped abruptly, a hush falling over the room. My stomach thickened with dread as I glanced at Jason, noting the rigid tension in his frame. "What now?" I whispered, the unease in my heart spiraling into a tempest of confusion. "Listen," he commanded, leaning closer, a single finger raised for silence. The sound of erratic whispers crept from the other side of the barricade, the foreign words dripping with weight and implication, a language I struggled to decipher. "Mia," Jason whispered, eyes locked on mine. "You need to trust me, and I need you to pay attention. What you heard before, it might have been a warning about you." Before I could even digest what he had said, the door burst open with a sudden crash, the wreckage scattering like leaves caught in the wind. Figures stormed in, cloaked in darkness, and I instinctively dove to shield Mia, a primal instinct pushing me forward. Jason moved to intercept them, standing as a bulwark, but a chilling realization struck me like a thunderbolt. One of the figures was Jason's twin brother, Lucas. Recognition washed over me, mixing with horror as I processed the flashing memories of a past I had thought closed, now erupting in this chaotic moment. "Clara," Lucas said slowly, his voice almost a purr, "you didn't think you could escape us forever, did you?" The words dripped with malice, and as my heart raced, everything I had built crumbled. The unfathomable depth of betrayal loomed heavy above us, casting the shadows even deeper as I realized the treacherous games we were caught in were far from over. "Mom! What's happening?" Mia cried, fear weaving itself into her voice. And in that harrowing instant, as Lucas stepped closer, the truth of our shattered lives spiraled precariously around us, threatening to crush everything we tried to hold on to. Everything went black again, and I knew we were on the edge of an abyss, one from which no one might return. The silence that followed felt like an eternish, a heavy, suffocating pause teetering on the brink of chaos. I held Mia close, my arms wrapped protectively around her, as the shadow of Lucas loomed larger. Every breath I took felt like a desperate gasp against an encroaching wave. "You don't have to do this," I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper against the sharp clamor of uncertainty. Lucas chuckled, but it carried an edge of cruelty. "Oh, Clara. You really have no idea what you're a part of, do you?" The tension thrummed in the air, vibrating around us like a plucked string, ready to snap. My heart raced, a need to shield my daughter from this looming darkness flooding my every thought. In that moment full of dread I raked through my memories, piecing together shards of information that had eluded me for far too long. "Jason!" I called out, my voice cracking amidst the chaos. But where was he? Had he become another casualty in this twisted nightmare? And then I saw him, a fleeting glimpse as he struggled against two figures, a storm of confusion entangled in the melee of danger and desperation. My mind raced with a million questions, but one burned hotter than the rest. Who could I trust in this fractured reality? "Mom, what's happening?" MIA's innocent voice pulled me back, tethering me to the present. My breath hitched, and I offered a soft smile, a fragile currency to exchange in the depths of turmoil. "I promise, I won't let anything happen to you," I murmured, a prayer laced with uncertainty. "Together." Jason shouted, breaking through the shadows with an intensity that sent a surge of hope through me. He pushed past the figures surrounding him, fighting against the odds, yet his gaze found mine fraught with fierce determination. It ignited something deep within me. The tide was shifting, we would face this together, no matter the cost, and as if a cavalry of old memories had rallied within, I summoned every ounce of strength that had lain submerged beneath layers of doubt and betrayal. "You may think you can control this, Lucas, but you've underestimated our bond," I declared, my voice steadier than I felt. "You're wrong if you think fear will bind you. No, Clara," he sneered, advancing further, an embodiment of all my past choices colliding with the hurt I carried. "It's your perception of connection that has led you to this tragedy." My heart skipped painfully, entangled with the fear of what his words could birth. But in that moment of darkness, something else flickered. An ember of rebellion sparked within me, carried by the love that stood around me, resilient and unwavering. I turned to Jason, our eyes locked in a tether of understanding. "No more lies," I said firmly, letting my emotions spill into the space between us like a vibrant torrent. "All those times I doubted, I thought fear was the way to protect what I loved. But the truth? It's the love we share that binds us, even through this." Jason nodded resolutely, determination shining fiercely in his gaze. I could feel the strength stealing in every breath we took. "We fight together or not at all," he declared, stepping closer, a sentinel against the roiling shadows. "Let them hear you." Lucas taunted, a smirk dancing on his lips. "You think your bond can shield you from what's coming? You're in over your head." "No," I declared, my heartbeat pulsing in harmony with each moment of clarity carving out space in my mind. "The strength of our love can break through any darkness. You've underestimated our resolve." As the figures around us quivered in uncertainty, a flicker of hesitance sparked in their eyes. In that brief crack in their facade, hope surged within me, a wild and reckless kind of hope. Our bond, built from mistakes and heartaches, pulsed with power like a beacon shining through the fog. "Mom, I have the files." Mia called out, her voice breaking through the grip of fear. The current shifted as I turned to her, feeling that unity again. "We can expose them," she said, stepping forward with conviction, despite the shadows looming overhead. "They can't control us anymore." That statement hung in the air, a bold statement of defiance that took root like a flame, pushing against the encroaching darkness, igniting the space around us. I felt the foundation of our collective strength fortifying against the potent weight of fear. As the figures shifted, their malice blurting into uncertainty, I took a step forward, my hand tightening around MIA's. "Together, we are stronger," I declared, my voice unwavering. And just like that, the storm broke. In the chaos of fear, a fierce flame ignited within our fragile triangle, a power born of love and resilience. It sent the shadows rippling back, retreating from the bond we held ever closer. "Go!" I yelled, having felt Jason's resolve echoing through me. Lucas sneered, but a flicker of something like fear danced behind his eyes as the tide of our united front surged forward. With a sudden understanding, we charged together, each step echoing with the promise of what lay ahead. The shadowy figures faltered, caught off guard by our defiance, and in that moment, I propelled forward into the unknown with my family by my side. With Lucas' cruel laughter trailing behind, we surged closer to the exit. The storm we had braved carved a space for hope, one where love triumphed over shadows, where clarity defined our path. And as we burst into the light outside, I breathed in the freedom of being alive, of standing together against a past that had once threatened to consume us. Get in the car, Jason urged, urgency threading through his voice, and Mia climbed in beside me, determination set within her small features, her life intertwined with ours in ways none of us could have foretold. The world outside felt impossibly vast, but in that vastness, I felt the weight of possibilities unfolding around us. A fresh start, a chance to reclaim our narratives, unburdened from the ghosts of the past. As we sped away, I held Mia's hand tightly, feeling the pulse of love beating alongside ours. Jason's profile shone bright in the rearview mirror, his eyes fierce with a determination forged in the fires of conflict. And then it struck me, pieces of our fragmented lives had come together in a tapestry of hope, stitching the wounds with newfound strength, our hearts united against any future storms that might come our way. Time was fluid, now ever moving and evanescent, but I felt calm sweep through the car, tethered by love, by unresolved questions and fierce resolutions waiting to be written. In that moment, as we disappeared into the embrace of the horizon, I knew the journey ahead would be uncertain, layered with promises yet fulfilled. But no longer would we weave stories of shadows and lies. It was time to embrace the light, to forge paths where our truth outshone every whisper of doubt, the unwavering truth of love that would lead us home. In that bittersweet silence, I whispered the words that defined it all: together, we'll overcome anything. And with that truth echoing in my heart, I knew our story had just begun.